your mics. Hey everybody, this is Dr. John Michael Salvato. You are watching Inner Alchemy, the Science of Spiritual Living. This is part of our Peak Performance Blueprint. Every Friday we get together, we talk a little bit about some spiritual concepts that you can plug into your life and begin to experience peak performance on all levels of your life in all 6 dimensions of wellness. And today I'm pretty excited to be sharing with you guys, along with my co-host, Reverend Robert Brzezinski, the concept of Noblesse Oblige. And for those who haven't heard that, there's a concept that infers a responsibility that privileged folks have to act with generosity and sort of a spirit of nobility toward those who are less privileged, those who are suffering. And we're not just talking about being nice to people, but it's something that we see echoed throughout the wisdom literature, the perennialist tradition. With the earliest mention, I think probably, or the most recent mention would be in the Bible's parable of the faithful servant. We read, "From everyone to whom much is given, much shall be required, and of him to whom they commit much, they will require much." And that's Luke 12, and I'm not sure of the exact 12:48, I think. And then 124 years before the Common Era, King Benjamin exhorted the saints in the Book of Mormon, saying, "Therefore I would that ye be steadfast and immovable, always abounding in good works." And then go back 3,000 years or 5,000 years, I'm sorry, and we find in the Mahasamsa Jakata, there is a what they call the now it just slipped my mind what it's called, the 10 virtues. These are the virtues that Buddha Shakyamuni admonished kings and royalty to have toward their subject. And within this teaching, there was also great teaching about how they should spend their prosperity, how they should spend their wealth, and how they should spend the wealth of the kingdom itself. And that included things like generosity, immorality, liberality, non-anger, non-violence, patience, uprightness, gentleness, equanimity, self-restraint, and I think that's it. Those are the 10. But anyway, you can actually see the article and the citations that I offer on the blog at barefootmillionairemastermind.com/blueprint, and then just click on blog. But today we want to talk about this concept of noblesse oblige. To whom much is given, of him shall much be required, or of her shall much be required. And it's the idea that this source within us, this beneficent source that we know by many names in many different traditions, is constantly giving so generously to us that it's incumbent upon us, that it's our responsibility, therefore, to give much back. It's the reason why when true servant leaders go to the marketplace, they have a responsibility to be transparent. They have a responsibility to be generous in training the folks that are entrusted to them. It's the reason why in a relationship, when you feel that your spouse, your partner, has given you much, has really and truly satisfied your desire for the perfect mate, then of you shall much be required. And that is why you're there for them. That's why you're present when they speak. It's why parents, when they're blessed with the incredible gift of children, should be present for their kids, and should not allow things like worry and fear to motivate their actions, but actually allow love and trust and communication and dialogue and setting a right example by living a right life be the motivating factors in that relationship with your children. And we could go on to communities. It's why I've made a commitment that I wasn't going to talk about the Orange Menace anymore. So I'm not. But it's why it's important that your leadership in your communities, your leadership in your churches, your leadership in your neighborhoods be people who are going to give back much, because to whom much is given, of them shall much be required. And it was something that Jim Rohn taught me in probably, I think it was the third or fourth week of being mentored by him, and it happened to be a week when Larry Thompson was present, and they both shared with me why that meant so very much to them. And for both of them, it was something that something of what we call in anthropology the hero's journey. And you know, they came from relative obscurity and financial need, and they really and truly in their hearts believed, for whatever purposes, that there was a sacred responsibility, for in order for them to continue to be blessed, to bless others, in the simplest of terms. And you know, if you, regardless of your spiritual traditions, I mean, right now we are this is the eve of the Shabbat for the Jewish tradition, and on Sunday night is the eve of Rosh Hashanah, and that's a time when we look at what it is that we've been given in our lives, and we ask ourselves, has what we've done been adequate for our names to be written in the book of life and sealed in the book of life? So it's a concept I wanted to talk about today, because you know, quite often we get so focused on the concept of accumulating wealth, attracting wealth, you know, whether it's the law of attraction or anything else. They don't talk as much about what I talked about a few weeks ago when I said the law of equivalent exchange. So if you're looking for kind of the more metaphysical or more scientific, more secular approach to noblesse oblige, to whom much is given, of him shall much be required, that I think that equivalent in science is the law of equivalent exchange, which outs me clearly as an anime geek, because that comes from Full Metal Alchemist, but it's a law that says, in order to receive something of equal or greater value, must be given up. And so the idea here again is to be serving steadfastly, and that's why a servant leader will always, in the long run, be more successful, make more money, have a larger organization, have a more satisfying life than the person who's just out there grinding 9 to 5, who's focused on nothing but themselves. And that's what we want to cultivate in our businesses. That's what we want to cultivate in our communities. That's what we want to cultivate in our families, is to cultivate this sense of servant leadership, you know, and that requires that we drink as we pour. It requires that we be mindful that what we're trying to do for somebody else is actually what they need and not what our agenda is. And it requires that we be willing to let go of things like hype and you know, pomp and circumstance and things that draw attention to us, because we're not the focus, we're not the issue. It's not about us. And if nothing in life is about you, it's one of the most freeing things that you can do to go into the marketplace then, when it's no longer all about you. And so let's talk about that. I really wanted to just kind of, you know, share from those 3 or 4 traditions, you know, why the concept of noblesse oblige meant so much to me, because Jim and Larry said to me, you know, John Michael, you've got to go to the core of your traditions. You've got to look at what you believe and see how that translates to you. You know, what does that mean to you in your tradition? And then identify with that and find your anchor in that idea before you go to the marketplace and try and sell a product, before you go to the marketplace and try and enroll somebody. And it was a huge turning point for me, because it was that 3rd or 4th week in my business when all of a sudden I started getting enrollments. And I started getting enrollments because I realized I wasn't coming from a place of need. I wasn't coming from a place of financial desperation. I was really and truly blessed But at that time, I owned 3 salons and spas. I was like 18 years old. And, for an 18-year-old to have that kind of financial stability and that kind of success made me something of a celebrity in my industry. And it made me something of nobility in my community. I don't mean that in an arrogant sense, but I had never thought before. All I thought up until that point was, I'm deeply grateful. I'm humbled by this success that I've been blessed with, and I'm going to try and do my best to give back. But nobody ever really pointed out to me that within my own traditions, there was a repeated theme telling me that I had a noble obligation, noblesse oblige, to serve. A noble obligation because much was given to me, much was expected from me. So I wasn't being a great guy when I went out and fed the homeless. Because I was blessed with much, I was expected to feed the homeless. The universe was counting on me to take care of others, to help alleviate suffering. To the degree to which I was blessed, I was expected to bless others. And guys, that was a game changer for me. That's when my business completely started to take off. That's when my life completely changed in so many aspects, not just financially. And it was the most freeing experience in my life, because then you reach this point where you recognize that for what in whatever terms work for you, that the beloved God, the goddess, Kali, Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, whatever works for you, is the source of all supply, and that money is nothing more than that sacred source in action. So money is always circulating to us. It's currency. We call it currency, and currency in the sense of current running through us is a way to look at that. It's that current, that blessing that runs through you. It's just pieces of paper otherwise, especially if you're in the fiat currency system. It's just pieces of paper. But it's just that currency. It's that opportunity for me to then circulate that energy, that blessing to others, so that they too can alleviate the points of suffering. Just as happened in my life can happen in their lives. But more importantly, when it happens in that flow, it transforms their lives because of our examples, because we're servant leaders. And so when we transform somebody's life, the first thing they want to do isn't to be selfish, but is to extend that blessing even further. And so when you do that, you begin to transform the world. That's the way that I approach my network marketing business. That's the way that I approach my clinical practice. That was the way that I approached everything in my life. And so I want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. And I actually kept it to under 15 minutes for my part. So Robert, let's hear you first. Give some thoughts on that concept, and maybe share with everybody a little bit about your experience as you celebrated a milestone and just got back from church conference.
Thank you. Yes. And I want to thank you for bringing this forward. It is a really important point right now. And not only in our own lives, but I believe in the consciousness of the United States, North America, and thereby the planet right now. You spoke a little bit as you started the concept of privilege is, I feel, one of the most important concepts white America has to understand today. And even more importantly, I think that privilege is even too kind of a word. Beyond with that, we have to, and I agree with you, not be generous, but be responsive. Be responsive to the experiences that are happening in our lives, be responsive to the events that are happening to our neighbors, to be responsive to not just what's best for me. I often talk a lot about the difference between being reactive and responsive. And the quick story is, if you go into your doctor's office and your doctor prescribes something and you come back a week later and the doctor sits you down and say, hey, I've got some news. You're having a reaction to that medication. you're going to have a much different perception of what that means than if you come back a week later and the doctor says, hey, I have some news. You're responding to that medication. Reactive is an ego-based, and it's all about what am I getting out of this. Responsiveness is that service-based perspective. It's that servant leader perspective that says, how do I respond in this moment to bring forth a greater good, to bring forth the life I truly desire, to bring forth more abundance, to bring forth the perfect relationship, to bring forth a deeper sense of intimacy and connection with my spouse or my partner or with a business colleague. There are these immense opportunities in our lives every day to respond in a way that is the both and. Because I can't spend my entire life just worrying about me and my money and my business. I have to be spending time with supporting those that are following. And so I liken it to, I'm not only reaching up to be uplifted by those above me and those that inspire me and those that are showing me a new path and mentoring me, but I have to be that for those that have not yet quite caught the consciousness, the perspective that I might have. And this isn't to try to put anybody on any sort of levels, not to say that, oh, you're better than I am and I'm better than they are. No, we're all part of this one thing going on. So in fact, let's change that reaching up and reaching down to reaching left and reaching right, and connecting with the people around us. As John Michael spoke about, I got to spend 4 days in the company of probably about 200 or more religious science of mind, centers for spiritual living ministers. And this conference has been happening for many, 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 many years. And some years we go to Puerto Vallarta to an all-inclusive resort, and other years we go to different centers and experience their community and be with them. And we did a very, very powerful process at the very end of our conference. And during this, I was awarded my 5-year service pin for as a minister with this movement and this organization. It's a little early. My anniversary date isn't until next year. However, our movement took a stand and pulled our annual convention out of Nashville, Tennessee for February of next year on principle of the law, the discriminatory laws that state is allowing to be passed, and to send a message. And we're not the only one. And that left us with an experience of, we stood in principle, and there were a lot of things that couldn't happen the way they've always happened. We get to make it up a little differently now. We get to experience a different perspective of being responsive to what's important to our lives. And in this process, so here's 200 ministers standing around, and in this process, we went through a ritual of raising our left hand, and raising our right hand and cupping our left hand. If you can see that in the picture. And we shared words with each other around, and part of it was that I placed my hand in yours. And you would drop your right hand into the open palm of the person on your right. Now, if you hang out in woo-woo circles like I do, there are some sacred cows kind of things. So when holding hands in a circle, left up, right down, I'll be left. If it were left up to me, I'd be right down to dinner. But really, this is the sign of an avatar. Open and receiving to what is ever coming in, and willing to project that, reflect that, respond to that, move that back out into the world. And together, the oneness is created. So I liken this, you spoke to the peace of the holidays and the coming traditions, and this is the time of the high holy holidays for all traditions in one way or another over the next few months. Even all the way back to our pagan roots have their high holy day in the next 90 days. because this is the time when it appears, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, that we move into a period of darkness. Really, what I believe is happening is there's a period of reflection that allows for a brighter light. And on a level of consciousness, we are conserving that light for a little bit here. Now, this is also the time of harvest. So there have been a lot of seeds planted this year. There's been a lot of seeds planted over the last several months, and many of them are coming to fruition right now. I'm seeing that in my own business. I'm seeing that in my spiritual communities. And I'm seeing it in many of the people that show up and watch this program on Fridays. So I feel it's a great time to remember that whatever's going on, it's never about me. No matter what's happening in your life, it's not about you. It is for you. And there is an opportunity for you to step into something new. There is an opportunity for you to step into something. It doesn't have to be better. That implies what's going on now is not right. There's something where for you to step in to be a more empowering leader to those that look to you and to those that you call colleagues. So I invite you into the conversation, and that's what Fridays are all about, having that conversation. Let's open this up. Who else has got something they'd like to share?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Hi. Yes, I'm loving this conversation between the two of you going on. What I'm taking from it is that it's heart-centered. Everything in our life has to do with our heart. Basically, it has to come from our heart. And when you yourself, Jean-Michael, spoke about the businesses you had when you were 18, and that, I was sitting there, I totally believed it, because that is who you are. That is who your personality is. You are constantly giving yourself, and many in the groups over the last couple of months are constantly giving information, giving of yourselves, giving of your time, and that's why the business, well, not the business, but that's why the group is thriving, and that's why your life has gone the way it's gone, is because that's originally what your heart had. Your heart had that of that giving to everybody at such a young age, and it's progressed throughout your whole life now, that is what you do. And when we come to internet marketing and come to a business, you can just use your head for it, but you will find it quite difficult until you have that transition where you realize it has to be with your heart that you're serving the people. And some of us, if we haven't had that heart before in our lives, we haven't lived our life that way, we might find it hard to do that transition. But it's not until we have that transition and we decide to do that, let that transition take place in our heart, that we will thrive in all aspects of our business, of our life. Sorry, I keep saying business, of our life. And that's what I'm seeing between the two of you speaking now, Robert and yourself, in what's happening with your lives. It's a true example of leading by the heart.
Thank you, Ida. I want to add one thing onto that real quick, because you spark in me an old saying that I've heard in business settings, I've heard in spiritual settings, and I know it applies at the level of our lives. People will never care how much you know until they know how much you care. And whatever you do to help people see that you care, that you're here to serve, and that you're doing that with that loving servant heart, that's truly relationship marketing, right? That's relationship. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to build those relationships in a way that people understand, I care for you so much more then I care for the product, then I care for who you are, and that that you're getting the resources you feel necessary to move yourself forward. That's what really transforms lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else has something to share on what the noble, maybe share with us what the noble obligation on your heart is that you feel that you bring to the marketplace? What is it that you've been charged with? If you feel comfortable sharing that, you know, there's some people, someone who's not here today, who I'm so proud of. In the last week, Jennifer Baldwin, who I'm sure will watch this on the replay, and so Jen, mad props to you, because you responded to that noblesse oblige in your life when this week you said, you know, I'm trying to lose weight, and I feel the best way to give back is by creating a support group for people trying to lose weight. And in the very beginning, it was just that was kind of a little calling in your heart, and you didn't know how well it would do. And you kind of tenuously stepped out in faith and said, okay, the group, I help you put the group together, and the group's done. And guys, if you want to join. And it was a Kodak moment for me to watch so many people within like 3 or 4 minutes of you saying, anybody that wants to come hang out, let me know, to watch, you know, 10, 15, 20 people right away respond to you. And those are the things that give us a signal in life that we're paying attention. You know, when you say, I think this is what I'm called to do, and you do it, and the people respond and say, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this. You know, that's when you stop and say, wow, not me, but that which is within me. Awesome, you know, and you can't help but be grateful in that moment. So I'm really proud of you, because that was an example of stepping out. And in Noblesse Oblige, you took that a step further, and it carried on into your participation in our business group. And you know, started sharing with people places where they could find resources. You started sharing, you know, stuff that was meaningful to you in your daily what we call Lectio Divino, your daily study, your self-development. So I'm really proud of you, Jen. I just want to acknowledge that, since this is the topic today and you weren't able to be here today, I understand. So, you know, we're proud of you. Katrina and Kathy, anything you want to add?
Well, one thing I'm struck by is the, you know, the difference between coming from reaction or response. And, you know, I find I have frequent opportunities to make that choice. And as much as possible, I definitely prefer coming from responsiveness, because even if somebody's coming at me in a kind of a aggressive or challenging kind of a way, if I really allow the wave of reactivity to move through and just allow its arc, it settles down, and I'm able to really perceive kind of respond from a place of compassion, understanding why that person is upset or why that person is, you know, communicating in the way they are, and move the communication to, if not a place of resolution, at least a place of harmony.
Good for you.
That's something that I attempt to put into practice on a regular basis. And I understand the value of that. It's so important. And also, I recently found myself being kind of redirected to connect with some people that, in fact, who I'm staying with at the moment, who I hadn't anticipated that happening with. And what I'm feeling is there's lots of opportunity here for me to share what I have to offer in terms of, you know, business and so forth. But what I'm finding is so much more important right now is just being with them, being present, and creating that, establishing the trust and the flow of love and care as human beings. Because I know that from that basis, then when I have something to share, it will be received.
And you're doing it from a place of service too, aren't you? You're in the garden helping them with the real day-to-day stuff of life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's part of it, and you know, and they have animals, and one thing they commented on last night was, "Oh my God, all the animals love you so much." Well, it's true, they do, but it's because I love them, and so you know. So again, this is all about building So anyway, I'm just enjoying being in the process of establishing the heart connection, because that is what it's about. And when that is what's flowing in any kind of a exchange, whether it's business or otherwise, then magic can happen. And in fact, some magic did happen. Just yesterday here, I was out in the yard with my back to out in the backyard with my back to the house. And all of a sudden I heard the sliding glass door open and somebody said, "Katrina, it's Tova." And I turned around and it was a woman that I have not seen in about, I'd say easily 8 years. And she is part of my heart family in a very deep way. I've known her since she was 5 years old. And, you know, we shared many years of living together in community. And, you know, we're very, very dear to one another. And it was totally unexpected. She started working for these friends like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
And we just looked at each other and we were both blown away. And we said, what magic has the universe worked that it brought us together here in this moment? So, yeah. And, you know, and I shared with her a little bit of what I'm up to. And she's, you know, she definitely wants to get together with me. She's interested in some of the business things I mentioned, and we'll see what happens on that front. But it was just an amazing gift. And so I always find when I'm being sent in an unexpected direction, after I get over my initial reorientation around it, I just start asking, okay, so why am I being sent here?
Exactly.
What is it that I have to bring and offer to this situation, to these new people? Because I know it's not just about me that I'm going in this direction. It's like, okay, so why are you sending me here? And so then the unexpected little gifts or big gifts, like yesterday, present themselves.
That's awesome.
And the magic of life unfolds. And that's really what I'm here for, is the magic of life.
Well, we're glad you're here, and that's an amazing story to share. And I'm so glad. I'm just so proud of you. I'm just glad that you're on that path and that you stuck with that path, because it was you that did that, that puts yourself in that frame of mind that you were, you know, open to receive. So, Kathy, anything you want to, we're going to try and keep this up at 35, 40 minutes today. Anything that, as you're listening, that you wanted to share, any reflections from your experience as a servant leader, who certainly puts this to work in your own life with your group?
Yes, I'm enjoying this conversation, and I'm thankful that it's helping me refocus on what's important. I loved what Robert said about you know, the medicine illustration. You know, we're reacting to it or we're responding to it, and it's just a matter of how you look at things. And you get caught up in life and it becomes me, or what I want, or what's my goal. And you kind of have to stop once in a while too and say, you know, it's about helping others. And then, of course, I want to identify my goal because that's where I'm going, maybe. But I want to focus on, you know, if I can help enough other people get what they want, I'm going to get what I want. And so I'm studying, and I've gotten behind of it, but I'm picking it back up again. But it's a wonderful study called heart physics, and getting our heart right and getting in tune with our heart. And I really love that study. It's by Dr. James Richards, and he's an awesome teacher. But I, this is awesome, and it's teaching us to connect with other people. That's what we do. And I have built myself into a little cave dwelling because, you know, when you put yourself out there, you can get hurt. And, you know, you got to be willing to take the hits. Sometimes you just need to get back in your little cave and heal and build your strength back up. And I had gotten to where I just didn't even want to associate with people because, you know, and I'm reaching out more now. I'm getting out there, and it's fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm learning to communicate with people again, and I'm having fun helping others. I always did. So I don't know why I got in the cave, but I did. And this is good. I'm appreciating all of you for keeping me focused in the right direction and keeping my heart right. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing, and you know, thank you for not staying in the cave any longer than you had to. You know, because you're absolutely right, and it is important that we listen to ourselves, and when the time comes to withdraw for a while, you know, we remember the great Palestinian master withdrew to the desert for 40 days, and so when we need to do that, we do that, but we don't allow that desert experience to consume us. We consume the desert experience. So if I could, Robert, if I could ask you to take us out with some affirmative prayers, what we call spiritual mind treatment, to affirm that our noble obligation comes from a place of grace and peace, and leads us in the direction of the flow of those smooth waters, those healing waters, and those waters of abundance in our lives. And thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Absolutely. And so I invite you to join me in a moment of reflection, a moment of turning within to recognize the one power, the one presence, the one infinite intelligence that operates as all of life. Now I call that God. And I know God by many, 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 many names. Some call it Buddha or Brahma or Allah or Yahweh, Vishnu, Kuan Yin, Source Energy, Divine Mother, Gaia, Love. Regardless of the name, I know God as the power, the presence, and the intelligence that operates as all of life, as the absolute source, the never-ending wellspring of love and light and beauty, truth and health and wealth and well-being, abundance, prosperity. It's all God all the time, and it's operating as my life perfectly, whole and complete, nothing missing, nothing absent. And as I know that truth of my life, I know that same truth of each one here, each one listening to these words now, in the future, on a recording, each one that hears these words, I claim a deep, deep knowing of their oneness, of that infinite connection of life that's happening. And so everything happening is happening exactly as it must, for the highest and the best of everyone involved. This is the truth I know. That grace and peace and abundance and prosperity are the divine birthright of each one, of this divine expression, this wholeness, this oneness. And so I claim for each one that hears these words, that deep understanding of that noble obligation, and a deep sense of the calling to serve in magnificent ways. It is that simple yes within to that obligation, to that responsibility. It is our ability to respond with grace and peace. And that brings forth a world that works for everyone, the life each one truly desires. So I know everything necessary for the absolute fulfillment of my mission, of each one of our missions on this planet, each one that hears these words, I know the absolute truth that everything necessary for the complete fulfillment of your mission on this planet comes at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way. And so I am grateful for that reminder, for this truth, for this revelation of truth, grateful to know God's got this, grateful to release this word into that law, that creative law that can only say yes, and let it be, and just let go and let God be God. And so I affirm this truth by just simply saying, and so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you, my brothers and sisters, for joining us on the show today. By the way, Scott wanted me to let you guys know that his connection was choppy. Everybody was breaking up, so he decided to jump off the live feed and just watch this on the replay. So we appreciate that. You know, appreciate the letting us know, Scott. We never take things personal like that. People's lives get in the way. Sometimes you got to run when you got to run. So speaking about got to run when you got to run, it has now been 40 minutes, and I appreciate you guys staying a little longer today. I hope it was worth it for you. And excuse me, as we do at the end of every show, I encourage you to stay in the moment. That's the point of power. And in the moment, you can find the abundance that's waiting for you. You can find the gratitude for everything that you've got that opens the door for the greater abundance that's coming. You can remember that truth, that happiness is the object and design of your existence, and that the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon. Love and appreciate you guys. Namaste.